Hello everybody, and welcome to Kobe's Classroom, the visual guide for the fight The Cloud of Darkness Chaotic. Some of the stuff in this guide might be a bit different to the raid plan you've been using. The reason for the changes are to improve consistency on the most painful parts of this fight in Party Finder. I'll explain all of it as I get to it, and there's a lot here to cover, so let's get started. For this guide, Alliance A players have a red glow, B has a yellow glow, and C has a blue glow, so we can differentiate between them. The main tanks in all three alliances should have their tank stance on, and we pull the boss. This little intro section has one mechanic with three variations. This first one has one arm blade glowing. We run in on the other side. This is the same one, but on the opposite side, so we'll dodge in on the right here. And finally, there's this one with both her arms crossed. This is a point blank AoE, so we move out. Deluge of Darkness will transform the arena with a raid wide, and the real phase 1 begins. Let's increase the size of this. Just before we get started, there's a quick thing to mention with this phase. The boss targets the 3 highest threat targets, and each auto applies a lightning vulnerability up debuff, so we need to have the off tanks take aggro at some point. Usually you want to tank swap at about 4 or 5 stacks. Alright. For this phase, I'm going to explain how each of the mechanics work, and then give you the order that they come out in, because there's 2 patterns for this phase's timeline. Alright, for this phase, I'm going to explain how each of the mechanics work, and then give you the order that they go off in, because there's 2 patterns for this phase's timeline. First, we have Grim Embrace, and this is kind of the major persistent mechanic in this phase. Half the raid gets tethered, giving a debuff. When this debuff expires, it will spawn a hand either in front or behind where your character is facing, based on the animation the boss does when tethering. This animation here, where the hand is underneath the crystal, will mean the hand spawns behind you, so moving backwards will be safe. The other animation has the hand behind the crystal, pushing it forward. This means the hand will spawn in front of you, so moving forward is safe. Grim Enhance happens twice, and both animations always happen, but the order is random. When your debuff has 5 seconds left, you'll get a timer above your head counting down. You should walk towards the edge of the platform and aim your character so your hand will cleave outwards. Then move forwards or backwards out of the AoE as it's spawning. You get a heavy debuff at 1 second left, so you only have time to move in one direction, or you can gap close out of it. If you do get hit by the hand, you'll get a cleansable 5-second doom, so healers, be on the lookout. Next up, there's these cloudlets that spawn on the sides. They'll start glowing, telegraphing an order that they'll shoot lasers in. Just move in after each set goes off. Arrow 4 will do a knockback with an AoE in the center. You want to knock back to one of the 3 corners. At the corner of every tile, there's a pattern of 4 small white squares. If you stand just to the side of this pattern at the middle tile, you'll be safe. At some point during this phase, she might cast an arrow, which just means she's stocking an instant cast arrow for later. Death 4 will do a draw in effect towards the middle, so you want to start out at a corner. If you're standing within this range, you'll be sucked into the center and killed. There's a slightly delayed AoE in the middle after the draw in, so give it a second to go off. Afterwards, there's a donut AoE to stand in. Getting hit during this mechanic will also give you a cleansable doom. Just like Arrow, there's an end death version of this, which stocks it for later. Rapid Sequence Particle Beam is 4 Alliance line stacks. We send Alliance A west, Alliance B middle, and C to the east. The 2 players at the front of each stack will take the most damage, so make sure the tanks are in front. Flare will mark 1 player in each alliance with a flare marker. If you've never seen these before, they do proximity damage. We send the Alliance A player to the west, B south, and C east. Everyone else will be at the front. Unholy Darkness targets each healer with a light party stack. Again, Alliance A west, B middle, C east, with light party 1 at the front and light party 2 further back. We've seen Blade of Darkness already, but let's take a look at the size of the cleave during this phase. So this would be in and to the left. And then this is out. There are safe spots to the east and west you can use, but it's pretty tight. Break 4 will spawn 2 eyeball minions. These will do a petrifying gaze, so look away from both and the boss. The west or east corner will always be safe, either just one or both of them. And that's all the mechanics. Let's get started looking at pattern 1. We get Grim Embrace, which gives debuffs, and then some cloudlet lasers to dodge. At the end of the lasers, we get some flares to spread. The flares are followed up by Unholy Darkness Light Party stacks. We have a Blade of Darkness to avoid, and then the first set of hands will go off. During these hands, the boss will cast either End Arrow or End Death, stocking it for later. The second set of hands go off, and then the third set of hands go off. These 3 hands are followed by Break, so look away. We have a Blade of Darkness, this one is always at the front, and then the stocked attack immediately after. I usually prefer to knockback invuln this one so I don't have to remember what it is. We get a second set of cloudlet lasers, and then the final set of hands, and a final death or arrow. Finally, Flood of Darkness ends the phase. Let's check out the second pattern now. This starts with Grim Embrace, giving the debuffs, and then cloudlet lasers again. This time we get an arrow or a death, and then the first hands with a stocked death or arrow. After the hands, we have the Alliance stacks, tanks in front, and then we have the second hand timers. Another set of cloudlet lasers to dodge, then the Blade of Darkness into this stocked attack. Hands 3 is next, which is followed up by flares. And then we have the final set of hands, and the Flood of Darkness raid-wide ending the phase. With that, phase 1 is over, and now the real fight begins. This starts with the boss casting Deluge of Darkness, which starts drawing this pattern on the floor. When the cast finishes, it will cut that shape out, so we have to pre-position with some people on the inside and some people outside. We send Alliance A to the west outside section and Alliance C to the east outside section. Alliance B takes the inner north section with D3 and D4 at the south, and off-tank and H2 of Alliance A and C take the inner southwest and southeast sections. With this setup, we should have a tank, DPS, and healer in all three of the inner corners, and a tank, healer, and 4 DPS of A and C on the west and east platforms. There's a small thing to note here. The melee DPS can stay north for a bit to maintain uptime, then run down around the ring. The cast finishes, transforming the arena. Some Atomos spawn on the intercards. These will keep spawning at certain times throughout the fight, just kill them whenever they appear. When they die, they drop a puddle which lets you teleport into the middle, so if a middle player dies and gets rezzed on the outside, they can use these to get back into the middle. The people on the inside will be standing on tiles. Standing on these tiles for too long will cause them to break, however the timer is very long. Stepping off your tile for a second will refresh its timer, so you can use the tiles next to it as a safety tile to refresh. If at any point two people stand on the same tile, it will instantly break, so we have a movement priority for everything. We always let the healer move first, then the tank, and finally the DPS, which should reduce, or hopefully eliminate, any traffic accidents. All the inner tanks should provoke the boss, and all the outer tanks should provoke their ad, just to make sure the aggro is correct. Dark Dominion is a raid wide that makes the outer ring unsafe, so all outside players should be on the platform by this time. Okay, now that we're all set up, it's time for the first mechanic, Towers 1. Both ads will start casting the third Art of Darkness, which telegraphs 3 attacks. 2 will be cleaves, shown by a single orb on one side of her tail. The other will be pair stacks, shown by an orb on both sides, or a spread, which is shown by her whole body glowing. The main boss starts casting Particle Concentration, and the ads finish their attack telegraphs. The first ad attacks come out. These ones were both cleaves, just dodge to the appropriate side. Towers spawn. In each corner of the middle there will be a 2-person tower and a 1-person tower. Remember your movement priority and fill the towers. On the outer platforms there will be 2 3-person towers on either the north and south, or outside and inside. We'll get to resolving these soon. The next set of ad attacks go off. The west one had pair stack second. These pairs are baited on the 3 closest. We have the melee bait them, with the tank and healer north, D2 and D4 south, and D1 and D3 on the side. Resolve the pair stacks first, then dodge the last cleave to keep it consistent. The third and final ad attacks go off. The left just had a cleave to dodge, the east had spreads. To resolve this, we have the tank north, healer north to the outside, D3 aiming directly out, D1 south to the outside, D2 directly south, and D4 pointing towards the middle. You might say these spreads seem weird, but it's to keep everything consistent for later mechanics. Now it's time to resolve the towers. By now the inside players should all be sorted. For the platforms we have the tank, healer, and D3 take the north or outside tower, and D1, D2, and D4 take the south or inside tower. Again, might seem like odd pairings, but it means we can keep the exact same groups for later. All the towers resolve, and we're done. This is one of the biggest hurdles in PF, so having this consistent is extremely important. Next up is Ghastly Gloom. This has two patterns based on the shape of the shadows around her. If they're a square, it'll be a plus AoE. Platform players drag the ad out of the way, and tile players tuck into the outer 3 squares. If it's a circle, she'll do a donut AoE the size of her hitbox. Tile players use the inner 3 tiles, the healer and tank can use their safety square, and the platform players tuck into the small section of the hitbox on their platform. Afterwards, the ads cast Curse of Darkness. This gives all the outside players a debuff that results in a protean in the direction they're facing. Just aim it out when it goes off. The ads cast Evil Seed, giving 2 players on each platform a seed, and 2 east and west tile players a seed. This seed will grow into a bramble patch after it's dropped. To place the seeds, the tile players will want to move into the middle east and west tiles, and place the seed in the very top and bottom inner corners. When the seed drops, it acts as if a player is standing on that tile, so the healers should tuck into the cubby from now on. The platform players will place the seed at the top and bottom of the platform, a bit further in than where the platform intersects with the ring. Just use your eyes to work out who goes where, there's a lot of time here. Once the seeds have dropped, we get another Ghastly Gloom. This is always the opposite of the first one. If the inner players drop the seeds too close, the outer players won't have room to dodge the donut, so please be careful. The second set of proteans resolves after. The ads cast Thorny Vine, which will make the bramble patches chain to the closest players. The platform DPS will take all of these. The melees take the outer north and south ones, and ranged take the inner north and south ones. At the same time, 2 north and 2 south tile players in the same corner will be chained together. You should all stand as close as possible using the outer corner. These chains are broken by running far from the source, and the distance required to break it becomes shorter by standing closer. Once the bramble chains form, you can run and break it with the north platform players moving south and the south players moving north to be further from the source. The tile players can run directly east or west, with the tank in the opposite corner making space for them to break. While the tether breaks are happening, the ads will cast a flood of shadows that the tank needs to interrupt with intervention. After all the brambles are broken, the boss will start telegraphing either a spread or a line stack. The spread is shown with her glowing black and having black orbs floating around. You can use these spread positions. Once the platform ranged players have broken their chain, they'll already be at their positions, so they can just sit still. The spreads go off, hitting one group at a time. The other option is a line stack, where the boss is glowing orange. This needs the tanks in front. The tile players can group up in the outer corner, and the outer range players will be standing on the ring behind. Again, they're already in this position from breaking chains. This has been a lot so far, and we still have a bit to go, but we're getting close to having seen all the mechanics. Next up is Active Point Particle Beam, which will be a clockwise or counterclockwise spinning laser starting from the east and west, rotating 90 degrees to the north and south. For the tile players, we stay on our east and west sides. The tank in the group that's already safe shuffles over one to give the north or south group on their side room to move in. The group on the unsafe side will shuffle into the now open space using their movement priority. Then, when the lasers start firing, they simply follow the laser back to the corner. During the cast bar, the adds start using core lateral or lateral core phaser. When the cast finishes, the adds jump to the outside wall and do some cleaves. If it's core lateral, the safe spots are front then sides. If it's lateral core, the safe spots are sides then front. Once the cleaves finish, the tanks pull the add to the safe side to avoid the rotating laser. The laser starts rotating, and everyone just follows it back to their starting spot. At the end, the third proteins finally resolve. Excruciate is an AoE tank buster from both adds to mitigate through. Alright, it's time for Looming Chaos, which is the part where things really start to go wrong. But with these changes, it should make it much more consistent. Stand in these positions to prepare for the incoming swap. The swaps have some logic to them, so we can kinda gamify it to maintain consistent groups. The rules are one west and one east tile group swap. The remaining 6 tile players swap with the furthest platform players, which will always be a tank, healer, and DPS, swapping with a tank, healer, and D3. We chose to send D3 in because they'll have the easiest time dealing with a later mechanic. And the final 6 platform player swap, these are always D1, D2, and D4, which you might realize are the same tower groups. Hint, we're getting more towers. All the players get tethered and swap accordingly. These swaps do get messed up if people are dead, and there really isn't anything good you can do about that. Once all the swaps have happened, we all have our new groups for the rest of the fight. All of the tanks should provoke their new target to have correct aggro. One important thing to note for everything incoming, the B DPS players that were swapped out onto the platforms will act as D3 for all the upcoming mechanics. We get another Curse of Darkness, which is the protein debuffs. Just watch your timer and point out when it's running out. The adds do another set of cleave phases, which are handled exactly the same way. The boss casts Particle Concentration, which spawns the towers. We can now handle these towers exactly the same way as the first ones. On the platforms, it's tank, healer, and D3, north or outside tower, D1, D2, D4, south or inside tower. And all the tile players just keep using the same movement prior and resolve. Dark Domain makes the outer ring unsafe, and the adds start using the third Art of Darkness again, which can just be handled exactly the same way. The boss starts casting Faint Particle Beam. This gives one player in each corner a chasing AoE. The tank wants to move around to make sure the area clockwise of their corner is open for someone to run through. Everyone should position to the side of their tile to make movement a bit easier. As soon as the players see the chasing AoE under them, they should start sprinting clockwise. Any tanks can now take the open cubby in their corner to open up their lane. The adds finish casting and do their first attacks. These were both cleaves. They do their second attack, which was also both cleaves. When the chasing AoEs finish, the players that had them just do a full rotation back to their corner. The third attack this time was pairs and spreads. Do it exactly the same as before. Remember, the B DPS on the platform is D3. That's everything. We get another Ghastly Gloom. And then we have another Lateral or Core Phaser. Another Stack, Line, or Spread. Remember, B DPS is D3. And finally a Flood of Darkness interrupt on the adds, ending with a Flood of Darkness from the main boss. At this point, any damage dealt to the adds is added back to the boss, and now at this point we just get a repeat of Phase 1, the Diamond Phase. The Flood of Darkness at the end of whatever pattern you get here is the Enrage. And that's that. Hopefully this guide helped you out. It can get pretty chaotic out there, but I'm having a great time doing this fight right now, and I hope you do too. If you liked this video, you can leave a like, comment, or subscribe. You can follow me on Twitch or Twitter at BigKobeLive, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.